What would you do if you had some magical powers to change your dancing or something in the community? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Zouk Nerds. In this episode, we're going to be talking about real things that are very possible, but with a little magic trick would be much easier to transform, either in our dancing or in the community. Join us on this journey and learn all of the magical tricks that we would love to have and bring to you. So, let's go! Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode. My name is Alisson Sandi, and with me here, our beautiful co-host, Gui Prada. Hello, Gui.
Hello, my people. Welcome back to Zouk Nerds.
Today, we would like to invite you to join us on a journey. We've been doing many episodes that are very serious and very detailed about the community and about artists and about feelings and about finances and all of that. So then we thought, why don't we take a little bit of a crazy ride and discuss and talk about what if we had magic powers? What would we do for ourselves, for our dancing, or maybe for the dancers, for the community, for the entire world of dance? So what would we do if we had magic powers? Now, just to clarify, we're not going to go into crazy, magical, unreal dreams here, but real things that could possibly be beneficial for the community if we could just, click a finger and things could get better or opportunities could arise for everybody. So, Guy, what would be the one thing that comes into your mind that you would like to bring into the community or to improve in the community, that with the click of a finger, if it could happen, you would do it today?
Oh my gosh, I can only choose one.
We have time to talk about other things, but let's go for the first one.
Okay, honestly, if I could just do this and something changes in the community, I think something that would improve the quality of the dances so much would be snapping my fingers and everybody's posture is amazing. All the postures are incredible. The hips are in a good place. The rib cage is nice. The spine is aligned. Everything is beautiful. If we could just have the posture going, man, I think that would already make a big difference, especially for the quality of the dance in what comes to how stable it feels, how comfortable it can feel. The posture would be my first doing as a wizard.
I have a feeling that this may be coming from maybe some recent experiences, workshops, or classes. Would you like to share a little more?
This comes from most experiences, workshops, and classes. Whenever we are talking about closing brace, mostly when we talk about dancing closing brace, and also when we are talking about length of the steps, how big someone can step, especially when they step backwards, especially when they go backwards, the role that a good posture plays in helping someone walking back comfortably with stability is so large that we end up spending a fair amount of time talking about the posture. So we spend so much time talking about how spine aligns with the hips and how the hip aligns with the femur and how that goes with the ankles and where the weight is on your feet. If we can just go and then the posture is good to go, oh my God, I think we'll be able to work much faster in everything else. So that's why posture. What about you?
Well, just before I talk about mine, I just want to comment on what you said, because it's something that we talk a lot about in classes, and I relate to this as an example that I give to the students. I asked everybody, when did you learn how to walk? And everybody's a little confused. They think there is a right answer, a wrong answer, but that's not the point. The point is not really the answer, but more about how you learn to walk. As babies, we learn to walk by learning not to fall. And unfortunately, most of us, unless we have done some sort of mechanical training like martial arts, dancing, sports, we haven't really learned beyond that. We have only learned not to fall. And if you like to do things like we like to do because we're a little, nerdy about bodies and mechanics, just stop at the airport or on the street and watch people walk.
Yep.
There is a difference. There's a huge difference when people are actually mechanically doing the movement with the entire body, or when people are actually just catching from falling. And that's where I go about this. But we're gonna have to try not to get too nerdy and mechanical in this episode, because this episode is more imaginary and magical. But that's just a little comment that the reason why most of us need to learn how to walk or how to stand, it's because realistically, we never learned how to properly use our body. Now, what would I change if I could with a click of a finger? I think my first one is less about each dancer, but more about the community. I would like dancing to be something that is part of everybody's upbringing, everybody's household, everybody's experience in life. Just like music is. Music is part of everyone's experience in life, even animals. Sometimes you see some online videos of animals doing that. Turn around, everybody. I don't know if you've seen like dogs dancing to that song.
Yes.
Some owners will play that song, Turn Around.
The Total Eclipse of the Heart is the name of the song.
Yes. Whenever the owners play that song, the dogs will just do a little circle like this every single time. So it is part of everybody's experience on this planet. But dancing isn't. So if I could click and just go like, okay, everybody would have some sort of dancing throughout their life. Because again, look at us babies. We dance. I don't know if there's been any babies across the globe from any country, culture, region that didn't have music while they were babies and didn't, shake the booty or shake their shoulders or, play with their arms with music. But then it kind of just fades away because we're growing and now we have to be a certain thing. I wish that wasn't the case. So that's my first wish.
You know something funny, because you just mentioned that? I had a friend in high school that he didn't like music. It was really fascinating to me. How come you don't like music? And he told me that he grew up without listening to music. So it was something that for him, it was a little off-putting. So he couldn't handle listening to a whole song, for example. He would get like irritated, like, no, stop this. So it was the only person that I've ever met that had a hard time listening to music and liking it. He actively disliked it. Yeah, so one person from everybody that I met. So I agree with Alisson that when we were kids, there's some musical stimulation going on. Yeah, and I think if your magic could become reality, that everybody, has dancing in their household again. And it's funny because I'm saying these things now that I am a teacher to help in class, so the classes flow better. It's easier to convey certain messages to people if we have the background of dancing as a kid going on. Yeah, so when we become an adult, moving your body to music, to a rhythm is not so challenging as it is when you start dancing as an adult.
I think your friend didn't have the typical Brazilian mother that at 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning would turn the music loud and start cleaning everything like I had.
Yep. No,
The typical thing, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, put on the radio, put Roberto Carlos and all of the things and cleaning all day like my mom was.
No, definitely no.
Because then your friend would have music in their blood, honestly. Yeah. I'm very lucky in that sense because my parents were very, very much into music, not into dancing or sports for that matter, but music. Music has always been a big thing. And growing up, it was weird because I was more connected to real old music than new music, just because of my parents' taste. Like we're listening to 70s things, 60s things, 80 things, and I'm from 88. The music that I'm saying that I probably remember would be maybe when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. So we're talking about the late 90s. All that pop thing and all of those things. No, I didn't hear them because we would have the tapes or the CDs, and the only ones that my parents would buy would be like the top 20 collection of the 1970s, pop music from the 80s, or bossa nova from the 80s and 90s, or something like that. So I had more, I would say, old school kind of music influence. But on the other side, as we do have in Brazil, we have a lot of instrumental music. So we always had samba, we always had axé, we always had forró. So yeah, there was a little bit of classical and then a little bit of roots. So it kind of helps both to be more lyrical and melodical, but also to be connected to that dum dum, in the music.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's always some drum-based music style going on in the 90s that informed a lot of our understanding of rhythm, because that was so present in TV, especially on Sundays. It was so present that, this rhythm, the drumming became ingrained, at least I think in our generation. So my friend was indeed like an enormous exception to like the music dance upbringing of a Brazilian that is now 35, 36 years old.
Well, let's move on from that.
Continue. So what would be now something that if you could snap your finger, like that you would bring to yourself, not necessarily to the community, or be like a power, a superpower, a magic thing for yourself?
To be honest, the first thing that came into my mind, maybe this is superficial, but flexibility.
A very good
mechanical flexibility, because I know that this is something that I struggle with the most. For me, it's very easy to put on muscle. I go work out, boom, my body is there. Because I grew up in the rural area, I grew up farming, I grew up with a lot of physical heavy lifting exercise. So I think my body has that structure and that base for building muscle and strength very easily. But that works against the flexibility, because easy to get strong, but then not easy to, open up and have more mobility. And maybe I want to change the word. Not flexibility, but mobility. Because there is a difference in that. So more mobility, to have my joints and all the parts in my body move more freely. And hopefully that would make me less prone to injury, less tired, and way more active and creative on the way and the things that I do when I'm dancing or creating. Because I do know, of course, that when I was choreographing a social dancing like 10, 14 years ago, I had way different ranges all across my body. Sometimes I'm trying to do the same movement that I used to do many, many years ago. And that was when Zouk was a little wild. And I just feel like, oh my God, it's so hard to do this. But back then it wasn't. So more mobility for my body, which is... I get it. It's not something that I cannot change. That's why we're talking about practical things. But with a click of a finger would be sweet. It would be very sweet to just, boom, there you go. You have it. How about you, Gui?
Oh, man, that's a good one. I almost want to steal yours because, mobility, flexibility. I'm flexible in very specific parts of my body, but others are stiff as a rock. It's kind of crazy how stiff it is. So
some of your mobility are a little bit creepy for those
they are
who know
creepy,
you.
But because imagine like the mobility that could be everywhere in your body is just in one single part, So like it's all concentrated there, so it's a little weird. So I like to spread the mobility throughout my whole body. Yeah, mobility. Super incredible. Yeah, I would love to have, especially my hamstrings, especially my hamstrings, like be able to like fully open the leg. That would be so nice. Now, one that I would love so much to have is be able to speak many languages. I have a dream of being able to teach in the language of the country that I am in. So if I'm in France, I teach in French. If I'm in Italy, I teach in Italian. That kind of thing, So I'd love to have that ability to fully communicate certain ideas in a way that the people from that place can fully understand. One thing that is really interesting about teaching internationally is that, we're using English for all the things. And we are in a country where people speak English, but their understanding of English is just less, And then you speak everything and then you say, "Did you guys understand what I mean? Does it make sense?" People like, but then the local person translates what you said. And then when they finish speaking, people are like, So
Yes.
their reaction to what you said, but now in their language is so like, they're like, "God damn it, man. They didn't understand a thing of what I said." They're just like, they're just nodding along and pleasing me, So I'd love to be able to speak all the language, all the possible languages. And it's so funny because after traveling around and then going back to an English-speaking country, it was so interesting to notice a certain different sense of satisfaction because I was being more understood in my words. So I was being able to convey more complex topics in a way that I felt more confident, not fully confident, because even if you speak the language, sometimes, but I felt more confidence that they were listening and they were understanding what I was saying. So here in Taiwan, for example, this past weekend, we did the leaders training. The leaders training has complex topics. So I made sure that someone was there to help me translate the complex topics because I had no hopes at all that if I would just say in English only, it would be understood. So yeah.
Talking about your leaders training, there's a lot of soft skills. So you need somebody who's really going to be granular about the information in that local language. It's not just step forwards, turn to the left.
Yeah, and it's so interesting when you realize that certain words simply don't exist in the other language. So they need to do a whole, you see them speaking, but just to refer to that one word, there was one particular word that, I don't know if it's calibration or that compensation. The word compensation doesn't exist, or they could not find a word for compensation in Chinese. So Glenn tried it and Ting tried it, and they asked people who spoke English in the room if they could translate compensation for a single word. They couldn't. So then they found an equivalent word, and then explained deeper using that word what we were meaning by compensation. Really fascinating.
Good to know.
It took some time.
That's good to know because I teach here all the time, and I'm sure I use that word very often. So I need to be careful with that word.
Yes, I was very surprised. And first we needed to explain what we meant by compensation. It's more like when you have somebody who is more aware than the other person, that person with more awareness does extra things to compensate for the things that the other person is not doing for whatever reason. Yeah, so for example, you're going to lose balance. So your partner is losing balance, you are losing balance, but you are more aware of tools to recover balance. So you compensate, so you do something else to bring back the balance that otherwise, if you don't do, you guys would, catch yourselves in a different way. So they understood, but there wasn't a word for that. And the same thing happened when I taught in Japan. Now I don't remember the word, but it was super interesting because it was something related to the invitation to dance. So the way that we normally invite people to dance is with using certain words, like, would you like to, can we, something like that. That is not how they build invitations. So that's why I would love so much to be able to speak the language so I could understand the culture more. So when I'm explaining a concept, I can explain the concept using the way that they format language and messaging. I think that would make the work of teaching abroad 3 times more fascinating, maybe 10 times more fascinating, because I'll be able to switch brains as I switch location, That would be so cool.
I mean, I don't know if this is going to be in our lifetime, but I don't think that's too far from the reality, maybe in a couple of decades when you can just download software into your brain and just, pay for another language. I don't know. I might be just believing too much in the crazy news that we see, but, maybe.
Because that happens in the movie Matrix, né? That they just upload the knowledge. You remember Matrix?
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, oh, I know Kung Fu, I think my next one will be something like that, a little bit more, sci-fi-y would be like, okay, I want somebody to upload into my brain lambada. I sit on a chair and I'm there for 30 minutes and then sit up the chair, I know lambada. Let's go. That would be my next one, but that's a little bit more sci-fi, a little more sci-fi. So let's stay in something that is kind of doable, kind of practical. It just takes too long that if I could magically make it happen, I would. Okay.
It's interesting when you're talking about the explanations in different languages and everything like that, because I started teaching in Australia in 2007, and then I started traveling 2008, 2009. And of course, I was very much still building my persona, building my language, because English was a new thing for me as well. And I sometimes would go to some communities around Asia or Europe when I was doing tours, and I would ask them and the organizers if everybody was okay, if they liked it, and if they were happy with the classes, if they wanted me to change anything. And you're like, no, Alisson, everything's fine. Everybody's loving it. But why are you asking that? And then I would tell them, well, everybody looks very serious and very quiet in class. And they're like, no, Alisson, it's just because their English is not very good. So they are trying to really, really pay attention to everything that you said. And at the same time, the things that you're teaching are technical, they're very soft skills, and they're very little detailed information. So don't worry about it. They're really enjoying the classes, but they're just trying to make sure that they can absorb and pay attention to everything, which is something that happened recently when Christine and I were teaching in Germany, in Munich. And it was Christina's first time teaching in Munich. I was there teaching before maybe 3 or 4 times. And she had a class on Thursday night with all the followers. So it was a followers, mechanics, technique, and details class. Not like a choreography, but really, really just Brazilian Zouk technique. And I wasn't there, but when the class ended, Christina was talking to me and she was like, oh, Alisson, it was such a weird experience because during the whole class, I was like in my head and thinking, are they liking it? Are they enjoying it? I'm not sure. I'm trying to, lighten up, make jokes, but they're not laughing. They're not really being as warm as I expected them to be. But then as soon as I ended the class, everybody was like screaming, making noise and clapping. And it was like the end of a concert. And she was like in shock because that was nothing like the class. So by the end of the class, she was like, okay, yeah, that wasn't good. But then the reaction that didn't come for the 2 hours of the class came all in like 1 minute. And I understand that when I look at it, because I'm thinking, okay, that was the moment when they felt, okay, I can relax now and I can express my emotion and gratitude for my teacher instead of just being like continuously relaxed and expressive throughout the class. In class, they were just like, no, I need to make sure that I learn everything. If we could learn language like that, we could remove that barrier. That would be such a great thing for us teachers and for the community as well. Absolutely. Because let's say, Guy, you do a lot of tango, you love to learn tango. You go to Argentina, as much as Portuguese and Spanish, has similarities in all of that, you're going to be paying way more attention and being way more serious about everything than if you were learning from a Brazilian person speaking Portuguese or somebody speaking English. Just because there are differences that you want to make sure that you catch them, or similar words with different meaning, because there's that too, so yeah, I get that. Language thing is much bigger than just being able to speak. It's really changing the entire experience and the progression, when you think about it. Why would some countries not progress in Brazilian Zouk as much as others? It could be a language barrier. Mm-hmm. Think about it. Some of the first countries where the Brazilian Zouk scene and lambada back then really, really took off. But then the rest of the world was slow and steady. And then, of course, once it finally caught momentum in the US, it just went like wildfire. Because, language barrier really affects the community. Mm-hmm. It absolutely does.
One of the elements that people thing contributed to the growth of Brazilian Zouk, and the wondering that in Brazil existed for some time. Why Samba de Gafieira was not able to reach what Brazilian Zouk reached? Why Bolero couldn't make it? Why Forró? Granted, Forró is pretty big. And a lot of the people that I would talk to, they said the Brazilian Zouk professionals, they can speak English really well now. So that ability to speak English when they travel and be able to communicate what they're teaching more fully, I think that makes a big, big difference. Makes a big difference. Imagine if we could speak all the languages, or maybe the biggest ones, if we could all speak Chinese, if we all speak Japanese, if we could all speak Spanish really, really well, could speak German, could speak French, I think it would grow even more, because I think we would be able not only to convey the dance better, but to understand how to convey the dance better to that particular, group of people who speak their language, because it's really like it formats your brain in a particular way. Alisson, I think we talked about this before, how teaching in English for such a long time and then going to teach in Portuguese, we need to there's like a little glitch that happens. The ways in which we put ideas together in English is such that if you try to do exactly the same in Portuguese, the brain glitch is super hard. The words we use are different. Intonation is different. All the things are different. And communicating to Portuguese-speaking people, Brazilian audience, with the English-speaking vibe can be a little bit of a conflict sometimes. So I think now that we're talking about this, it could be a way to penetrate different communities, different places, different countries in a more, in a more meaningful way. Mm-hmm. If we can fully communicate our idea and communicate that from the point of view of understanding how that person is thinking based on the language they speak, it would be pretty powerful.
I mean, when we are teaching to Brazilian people who live outside of Brazil, at least for me, most of the times, I just tell them, are you okay with me just teaching in English and sometimes saying something in Portuguese? Because I promise the class will be way more flowy and continuous. Because if you actually want me to teach in Portuguese, I'll have to think a lot, and things are not just going to be natural. For me, it's been now I think 18 years of teaching English. And occasionally, let's say, out of maybe 1 million times I taught a dance class, maybe 50 were in Portuguese out of 1 million. So it's almost nothing. I don't even consider it, because even when I went to Rio, I don't know if I've talked about this before. When I went to Rio with Audrey, my first dance partner, when we were traveling the world, we were invited to teach at the Rio Zouk Congress by Renata. And we were like shaking. We were like, oh my God, Rio Zouk Congress. Back then, there wasn't a lot of congresses around the world or even around Brazil. Rio Zouk Congress was like what it is now, still the one event. But nowadays, there are more events around the world that has that influence.
And the numbers too, né? And the numbers, the numbers of people that come.
Yeah. And the biggest thing for us wasn't even the Rio Zouk Congress or being in Rio, but it was the pressure that we put in ourselves being invited by the queen of Brazilian Zouk. We're like, wait, you want us to teach at your event in Rio? Like, this doesn't make sense. But anyway, we were shaking. We couldn't sleep. We were so stressed. And then we got to the class. And then I said, okay, hello, everybody. We're going to teach in both languages because I see that there's a lot of Brazilian people here and there's a lot of international people here in this event. So we want to try our best to accommodate to everybody. And everybody's like, yeah, thank you. Because a lot of the other teachers couldn't teach in English. And then as I'm going Portuguese, English, for the first 10 minutes of the class, I see that whenever I speak in Portuguese, almost nobody's paying attention. But when I speak in English, everybody's paying attention. Then I decided to ask, hey, everybody, can I ask you a question? How many people here speak English? Pretty much everybody. Hands up. Everybody put their hands up. And then I said, how many people here only speak Portuguese? And then like 2 people kind of put their hand up. And I'm like, okay, would you prefer if I teach in English or Portuguese? And everybody's like, English, please, English. So even when I was teaching in Rio, at the Rio Zouk Congress, I taught in English. Because most of the people in class were not from Brazil, or they were Brazilian people that were happy enough to understand the class in English. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah. I think nowadays, at least this time around, there was a lot of Brazilians who don't speak English in classes. So they were truly like, yeah, we spoke both languages. But I remember in Ilha do Zouk, I would look at the crowd. It was like, there are 3 Brazilians here.
So it's like, hello DC, hello New York.
We can't speak English.
It's interesting because sometimes we go to some events and we feel like we're home, but we're like on the other side of the planet because we're like, why are all the Australians here? Or like, why is everybody from Singapore here? Like places that we teach a lot. And then suddenly we are in a country, but there is a large group coming from that country that you always go to. So yeah, it's very interesting sometimes.
Yeah. And with all of that, I wanted to talk about maybe the biggest dream. You know, Thanos from Infinity Wars, you know. What is the name of the movie again? Jesus Christ.
Endgame,
but it's Avengers. Get all the Infinity Stones and like, boom, snap the finger. Man, if I had that power of snapping my finger, I would snap my finger. Boom. And all the leaders in Brazilian Zouk would feel confidence, you know, calm and patience on day one. They get in class and they're like, man, nothing can shake me. I will struggle bus, but I'll be fine. And I'll come to the social, and I'll come to the Congress, and I'll be social dancing. You know, I think if I could have the Thanos power, I would solve the imbalance ratio thing forever. Granted, we would lose, I think, maybe 50% of things to talk about when we get together with other dancers. Because the thing we talk about so much is, where are the leaders? Why are they not here? We talk so much about this. There are maybe 6 episodes about this in this podcast alone.
Yeah.
But man, I think I would do that right away. I think it would be maybe even before the posture, I think. No, first the posture and then...
Priorities, Gui. Priorities.
First the posture and then boom, confidence, amazingness, patience, calm. You know, desire to social dance.
To be honest, I think the posture improves confidence.
The posture improves confidence so much. Yeah.
I think maybe you've done a workshop like this where the teacher actually does some playful exercises with you. And like the posture that you have really affects how strong and how sure and how confident you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like stand up, shoulders down, puff your chest. Now say it with me, this. And you feel that. And then if you curl up and okay, now say it with me. Like you even question yourself just by changing your body posture.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, Jaime used to do that. Jaime used to do like normal person and then like special person. And it'll be like normal person, special person. And then every time somebody was like slouching, he'll be like, are you a normal person or a special person? And the person would be like, oh, I'm a special, you know. So like would immediately change. Yeah, I did that so many times, and it does help improve so much the confidence portion. Yeah, I think I would maybe snap the finger, and well, I think with all the things we talked about, if people have this from early days in their lives, from their households, if people have the better posture, I think that would like trickle down all the way to the adults that is coming to dance in a way that they would have more easier time with the music, easier time with their own movements, and with a good posture, that would improve so much. Because I think one of the big issues with everybody, but mostly when we talk about the leaders, is that people coming, learning how to dance as an adult with not that much body awareness. They need to be in tune with the music, their own bodies and the other body and the space. So a lot of stuff for them to be mindful of. So with the dance from early days, with music in their lives, maybe several of these things would be covered. And then maybe we could have more of the confidence part going on earlier on. However, I still think that there is this thing of the confidence that the leader has about, I only know my 4 moves. And then after I did my 4 moves, the fall was going to die of boredom in my arms, you know, all these things that we all suffer at some point. So I would like make that disappear. None of that thing. They're like, I know 4 moves and they are so cool. And I'm going to do them over and over again with all the variations. It's going to be so nice, you know? Getting this concern about having to please the other person or being scared that the other person is not pleased with your dance. Move that away a little bit more. Of course, we want to keep the awareness that there's an exchange and both people are having a good time. However, I would try as much as possible to take that insecurity about not being enough and push it to the side. Because it was something, somebody asked me this, you traveled so much, do cultural differences truly make a difference? Like, do the cultural background or the culture that you were in change anything in the way that people dance, in the way that people touch? And then I told the person, at first, I thought so. But after going everywhere that I did and teaching very similar content, sometimes the same content, I started to see this more as an excuse, like the cultural difference. Because in the end of the day, everybody wants to connect with somebody else. Everybody wants to have a good time. Everybody wants to get good. Everybody wants to get proficient. So the human needs are the same. I noticed that the biggest difference is on the leaders specifically. And biggest of them all, it was the enormous difference and cultural shock that I feel when I go to Brazil and see the Brazilian leaders dancing. Then I go anywhere else, see the leaders dancing anywhere else. I said maybe in France, in Italy, I saw the leaders with a level of embodiment, a level of being in touch with their bodies. I didn't go to Spain much, but I was told that there is this level of embodiment too. There's a little bit more, maybe higher. But Spain, Italy was what I was able to witness. Similar to Brazil, but when you go other places in Europe and other places in the world, Asia, Australia, United States, a little bit better, Australia, a little bit more embodiment. So that I think was the biggest difference. In terms of the followers, there are some differences, but overall, the sensation that I get when I observe and when I dance nowadays is more and more similar, regardless of the country. So the differences that I notice the most is on the leaders and the experience in class. The experience of teaching, that varies a lot. That varies quite a lot. But the experience of social dancing, not as much. So that's why I'm thinking that if we could, now that I'm saying all these things nonstop, I realize what is the thing I would snap my fingers about would be embodiment. So people feel their bodies, people feel their movements, people enjoy it. So even if they did 5 viradinhas in a row, they are not thinking about, oh, I did 5 viradinhas in a row. It's more like I'm enjoying the sensation that doing 5 viradinhas in a row bring to my body. So change the focus from I'm repeating this too much to I love how it feels like. Something like that.
I agree. I think it kind of encompasses everything that we want to bring to dance when we talk about connection, when we talk about comfort, when we're talking about confidence, posture, the full embodiment of your experience, not necessarily of the Zouk technique, but of how it feels to move your body a certain way. Because you can dance Zouk in so many different ways. So many different ways. You can dance any dance style in so many different ways, but really understanding how it feels good in your body to dance any of these ways and then making the choices of I like this way better because of this, and then I like this way better because of that, and this way better because of that, and then really allowing your experience to dictate your decisions. Instead of I need to do that because the teacher said that, you can actually try and experience things with your body and then decide, okay, I really, really understand and feel my body and this feels better to me. And that's what it is. Like we mentioned in an episode that is actually coming in the future, we have some secrets for you guys that we've been keeping from you. But in the future, there's going to be some fun, exciting episodes that we've already recorded. And in one of these episodes, it's talking about what if a student tells the teacher, I respect your opinion, I respect your technique, and I know you want me to do this way, or your students to do this way, but I've learned multiple techniques and I like to do things this way, which is different from yours. And I want you to respect that. And I think that's totally fine. Totally fine. Like I have students here in Taiwan who have told me, hey, I've learned this from this teacher and that teacher, and I prefer my head movements this way. And I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. And then I teach them, okay, knowing that you want things this way, I need to teach you and open up your perception as to how this affects people who don't dance with that technique, which is my case. I feel this way when you do this way. So when you do this way, I have to do this way. As long as we understand how to translate and how to adapt and make that a pleasant experience, I think there's no problem. So that's where I go about when this happens. I just like, okay, you like to use the word open. I like to use the word, what other word?
Step to the side.
Yeah, I like to use the word open. You like to use the word step to the side. Both can, in certain aspects, mean the same thing, but they will create different reactions from people. And even mechanically, when I say open, it's one thing. When I say take a step to the side or step to the side, mechanically, your body might react differently, which again goes back to that thing about speaking the local languages as well. But yeah, like I think the full embodiment and the full inclusion of all feelings and experiences is what we want to create with magical powder, magical glitter, sprinkles everywhere around the world. And with that, I think we have a lot in this episode that we already talked about. And hopefully this was a enjoyable journey with us here in this magical world of imaginary things that are not impossible, but would be easier with a click of a finger.
Yes.
So thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye everybody. See you next time.
Beijos, beijos, abraços. Tchau.